Some of the challenges I think that retailers face, in particular with energy, is are they aware of all the endorsement coverages that are required in the oil field? The Halliburtons, the Chevrons, the BPs, they sub everything out, or it gets passed down the chain, and so there's all these requirements.
Right.
So there's kind of got these standard endorsements, blanket AI, waiver of sub, PNC, primary non-contributory. Those are staples of pretty much every oil field contract.
Right.
The problem is,
and specific language as far as how they want those endorsements to look.
right.
Because there's so many variations out there.
So blanket AI, while everybody has a version of that, the standard that you typically see is some reference to 2010.
Right.
CG 2010. So with that, it needs to be equivalent language or something similar. And that's not always given up front when you get a blanket AI endorsement from a carrier. So that little nuance can be a big issue. And we've definitely had insureds, I'm sure you have, where
Post-bind.
they're on the job site, and what happens?
Yep.
They're like, can't come
That's
in
not
here.
going to work.
Yeah,
Right.
not gonna work.
And then it's a fire drill.
Yep.
Because obviously the insured's upset, the agent's trying to figure out what's going on, they're upset, and now we're trying to get everybody to make moves in a matter of, a couple hours or less.
Right.
And
So that's where the value of a wholesaler comes in. We know those requirements. We understand those requirements. We ask those questions before we get to binding, like, hey, do you need this specific endorsement language?
Right.
And so we're asking those questions so we can help that agent avoid those pitfalls, when it comes to those type of forms. And I think another one is the underground resources and equipment.
Massive.
If you're talking about over the hole or down the hole exposures, workover rigs, well servicing, plugging and abandonment, drilling, wireline, anything like that, you're going to need that coverage, and it's not standard in every policy form.
No, and if you're not dealing with it on a day-to-day basis, you really don't even know to look for that. You don't know to ask for it.
Yep. And so I think it's super valuable to have a wholesaler that knows those pitfalls so that they can be avoided for the insured and the agent. There's no headaches, there's no problems, no one's getting kicked off the job site.
Right.
And that, underground resources and equipment, if it goes below ground level, if you lose a piece of equipment or you damage something below ground, it's
It's no
not
longer
covered
covered.
unless that endorsement is there.
Correct.
I think another one is XCU, cratering, underground explosion. That's another one.
XC is a really big one that people don't talk about that often.
Mhm.
And there's so much more, obviously industries like the energy space, especially in, gas, it's a massive exposure, and people are having XCU exclusions pretty regularly.
Yep. Or they're silent on it. It's not included as an endorsement.
And
coverage.
banking coverage on, a carrier being silent is really not an efficient way to get coverage.
If it goes to court, you can probably get it covered, but you have to go through the process of
Right.
going to court.
Right.
Like, let's just get it covered up front, and we know we're getting paid out. The insurance getting paid out if there's a claim. So yeah, and that's not a standard endorsement that everyone adds in,
No.
especially if you're using some carriers that kind of dabble in oil and gas,
Correct.
but don't necessarily do it.
Like
all
environmental
in.
markets that are doing some ancillary oil and gas stuff.
Right, exactly. The XCU, the underground explosions and cratering, that is another example of a coverage form where if you're not doing this on a day-to-day basis, you might not know about it.
And I think it all comes back to like being proactive with those things, because while an agent might be able to go and get that done after the fact, there's already all these problems in place. Like the special where we come in and somebody that specializes in energy is really being proactive and getting ahead of it.
Yeah, and to your point there, not every carrier offers it. Not every carrier has the ability to offer it.
Correct.
So sometimes you get into a situation where you've already bound coverage, 25% minimum
Right.
earned, you're 5 days into a policy, and all of a sudden you realize not only can I don't have the endorsement, the carrier can't offer
Can't
the
get it.
endorsement, so now I've got to pay 25% and then move the account.
Right.
Insured is not happy.
Yeah, and the ripple effect can be so big there, because It's not just your primary coverage. Now we have to make changes all the way up.
Yeah.
You know, it can become a bigger mess than it sounds like in the moment when it happens.
You're talking about all the other lines that get affected beyond the GL. And if you're in certain states where auto is particularly challenging,
Right.
or your loss history, you've got some frequency issues, whatever that means, we can't just blanket assume we can move an account from one carrier.
There's not
to
25 carriers waiting in the wings to
Yeah.
just pick stuff like this up.
Yeah, you know, Louisiana, South Texas, I mean, those are challenging places for
Right.
auto at the moment. So it is not a guarantee that there is an alternative because somebody forgot to check that they needed blanket AI, CG 2010 or XCU or
Right.
UGRE, whatever. So yeah, it can be a challenging environment. So that's why you need a wholesaler that does it day to day.
Correct.
And you and I are in the trenches day to day
Dealing
doing
with it.
oil and gas.
You know, and you know, that's the benefit of having dealt with it and you know, going through those types of things and seeing those things in the past. And it's like, okay, great. You know, we know now to make sure that those things are taken care of.